What do you think? Are we crisp enough on this?
Do we need to be crisp? Has it ever been crisp? Let's just be clear on that. Just be clear on that. Is that important? We're
It's
here to have a good time mostly, and
right.
it be useful to the audience where we can. And if we
Yeah.
have to give one of those up, we're still going to have a good time.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. I'm Chris Lockhart, and I'm joined by Phil Yanoff. You may notice I'm not in my usual setting of my home office. There's a really good reason for that. I have a special guest. It's very exciting. But we're going to do a proper, like, what are they on TikTok? I think they do these reveals, right? So it's like you do this, and then when they drop the sheet, there's a special guest star. It's Oliver Cronk. Welcome, mate.
Great to be here.
Hey,
Great.
kids.
So
it's Oliver Cronk and Chris Lockhart in livery, I might point out. They're both got the Consultant Saying Things shirts. Look
what
at that.
happened to yours, Phil? You don't even
have a shirt. I have a mug. I have a mug. I didn't think to bring the mug today.
Well, we are together, not on like a tour or anything, although, who knows, that could happen at some point. But no, Oliver is on this side of the pond. Yeah. And I thought, let's get together and try to do a in-person kind of thing. Why are you here, by the way?
I'm actually here for a conference in Denver. So I must caveat, I'm massively jet lagged. So
correct.
Good luck with the editing.
Yes, it's the middle of the night for Oliver. Okay, well, actually, that kind of plays into a little bit, right? One of the things I wanted to talk about, because on the plane, right, I was looking at, as I often do, the subreddit for consulting, our consulting. And one of the things I saw in there was this great sort of meme. If you're familiar with the guy holding the sign and it's got some written stuff on it, that sort of thing. This was guy holding a sign, and I'll put this up in post, but like the sign is, what do consultants even do, right? And he's holding that up for an audience. And I looked at that and I was like, that's funny, that's clever, but it actually kind of struck me, right? And you probably have experienced this, and Phil, you might have as well. I know a lot of consultants have this experience, which is when your mom asks you what you do, right? And you say, I'm a management consultant. Well, what does that mean? And then it's like, it's either going to be like the 2-second, it's so generic, it's meaningless. Well, I help people solve their problems. Or it's this like, well, do you have a half hour so that I can, go deep into all of these things? And, that's always been a struggle for me. What do you do, right? But I think there's this other bit, which is, I think it speaks to sort of like a deeper problem, right? Which is, if you're unable to answer that question, there might be like other factors at play, right? And we'll post the link to this thread, but if you read through this post, the responses to it get progressively darker, right? And disturbing. And so I wanted to sort of have a conversation and sort of think about, like, how do you answer the question, what do consultants even do? And I think, importantly, is that really the question that you ought to be answering? Is that the reason you can't answer, is because you don't have an elevator pitch? Or is it because of something else, which I think the thread sort of implied? So, Phil, I'm glad you're here. I wish you were here, Phil. We could have like a round table. We've got like cameras, and like, it feels professional.
We've almost got a fireside chat going on.
Fireside chat. I could turn it on. It'd be great.
Actually, we could, if we use just your shot, we could call this show Between Two Consultants.
Wow. We need plants, is what you're saying. We need like some ferns.
Yeah. Well, that would be between two ferns, but now it's between two consultants.
So what you're saying is, if you were sort of sitting here in the background, like
I'd be in the back. I'd be in the back drinking or something, is the way that would be. You take these shots and kind of superimpose them later. Just stick my head back in the back there with a bottle of bourbon or something.
Drinking.
Scotch.
Yeah, that's one of the things that came out on this Reddit thread, right? Is that some poor person's way of coping with the existential angst, I suppose, they have around that they're not necessarily loving what they're doing. They're earning a paycheck, is to find some kind of escape, which for some people is alcohol and so on and so forth, which is pretty scary, some of the stuff that's in this Reddit thread, actually.
It is really scary. I mean, one of the big things that stood out is, I'm only doing this for the money. I know that's how I got into it. Now I'm stuck and I can't get out. Right. So it's sort of like this, it is existential angst, right? Of like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Phil, I know we've talked about like mental health and things like this before. Look, what's your pickup on this? What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, first off, I want to know why you want to solve the problem at all. I mean, when your mother asks you, what do you do for a living? She doesn't really care. I mean, why not just point that out? Mom, you don't really care what I do for a living. I got you a present. Don't worry.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
She wants to brag to her friends about what you do, though, probably.
My son's a doctor. My son is a management consultant, right?
Yeah. Well, tell her, Mom, tell him I'm a kind of a doctor. Just tell him I'm a kind of a doctor. I go in and I ask, like a country doctor, I go in and ask big companies about their troubles, and they tell me. I give them a pill, and we fix some stuff. They fix some things. That's it. I mean, I don't know, right? So, but I think in that, part of the question becomes, why do I want to solve that problem? And I think there are some good reasons for it, by the way. Those are kind of the silly ones, but I think there's some good reasons to be able to say, I want to be able to say what I do. I mean, maybe let's imagine I don't have a real biz dev role, but maybe it's a side hustle for me, or it's a side thing that I have to have a sort of business development thing, part component to this, right? So that is, I would like to be able to tell people what I do just in case someone else needs what I do. So that's kind of a good thing to be able to do it. So yeah, I think then it gets to the point of, is there something going on? Do you simply just not have the words? Are you embarrassed, or maybe you don't know what you do? I think there's 2 or 3 ways to go about this, right?
Oliver, it can't be that we don't have the words. That's our staple is words.
Where I was
right?
about to go was, if you can't explain something simply, you generally don't understand it. There's a phrase along those sort of lines, right?
Yeah. The people that use fewer or that are more concise, clearly not me at the moment, but like when you use fewer words, right, you have a tighter grasp on the thing. I think that's why we always go with you need an elevator pitch for XYZ and etc.
I also think the other problem here is that consulting covers so many different things. It's almost like a person for hire in some cases, isn't it? Like, because I think if you could probably map out the consulting. I'm sure people have done a classic 2x2 matrix of the consulting world, right? But on one, I think it's like, are you just hiring a smart person that's just going to drop in and like almost be a warm body to like do good things, like be on the secondment, like a long-term sort of placement type approach? Or do you bring in a team and they have an outcome to deliver? So it feels like there's a whole spectrum to me of like consulting engagements, from I'm hiring Chris because he's a smart cat and he knows his stuff when it comes to architecture, through to actually I'm hiring this whole team to reimagine my marketing strategy because I want kind of better revenues, etc., etc. So there's like this more tactical use of consulting, and just that plus the dimension of different industries, different skills. It's so cross sectional, particularly management consulting, because ultimately it sits at the top of all of that, right? So how do you describe that? How do you describe that really succinctly is really hard, particularly if you work across industry like I do. I work financial services and public sector and other sectors. That gets even harder because it's different language. I think part of this is just the complexity of the consulting market. How can you distill that down to a few words?
I mean, Phil, you picked it up, right? It's like if you're in a biz dev scenario, if you're at a networking, you're at a Tech After 5 event, right? And someone says, what do you do? All right, hi, I'm, and you can't answer that question. And let's be honest, there's no calling out of anyone obviously on this, but we've been at events where it's like you ask someone what they do and it's a half-hour grueling marathon, right, of a response.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. People can't tell you what to do. And the thing is, let me tell you, I've been in that spot, right, where I didn't think it was important, or there were different things going on inside my head. It cost me money, right? Because not being able to do that meant that you weren't out there being able to solve those problems for the people that you could have actually been helping, right? So forget the idea that I'm trying to sell a thing. There are people out there looking for you. Maybe someone actually asked that question because they need help from someone like you, or someone to do what you can do. And if you don't tell them because you're embarrassed or too modest or don't have the courage to say what you do, that's a problem. But if you just if you're not used to doing it, you don't, and you therefore don't have the words for it literally, right? Because that's, we're so good at solving these problems for other people that sometimes we don't get very good at solving them for ourselves. And I think that's just one of those things that happens.
Is that a problem? I mean, we've talked about like the genericist before, right? The generic consultant that is that smart cat. You can drop them in and it doesn't matter. You can work on a product strategy or technical strategy or an HR problem or whatever, versus, the guy that's like, I know everything about there is to know about SAP, ERP, and blah, 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 right? It's like they tactically know precisely what they're doing, whereas the genericist is maybe like, well, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, which we've talked about before.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about this because I think the classic management consultant is mastering on the consultancy skill set, right? The communication skills, the selling, influencing, et cetera, et cetera. I think we've talked about specialist architects many times on this podcast, right? Where you have typically a technology consultant like SAP or whatever it is, AI at the moment, pretty much, right? Who knows their stuff inside out, but perhaps isn't the best person to sell that or do the consulting part. I mean, I have this house on the table here, where I am now, we have some people who are very good consultants and they're also good technologists, but we also have outstanding technical engineers who work in a consulting firm. And it's sometimes hard because they don't have always that consulting skill set. So in an ideal world, you put the right team together with consultant cats and technical cats. But yeah, this gets tricky when you try and drop someone into a scenario and you say, well, you're a consultant, so off you go. And they're like, well, no, actually, I'm a really great SAP guy. And what are you doing to me? Dropping me somewhere I'm really not comfortable. So I experience this one day in, day out, because there are challenges here where people don't even understand that they're working for a consulting firm, and therefore their job isn't just to know the technology stack inside out or marketing, gizmos, whatever. They need to know how to solve client problems and listen to clients.
So, I mean, what if you can't describe what you do, right? I mean, so what if, like, I mean, I'll be honest with you, and people who know me know that I talk too much, but like, I've been the verbose guy in the room. Well, let me tell you what I do. Let's sit down and get out a spreadsheet. I've been that guy, and I don't know, it's all right. I get by. Like but then, there is sort of this, like, you question, like, well, who am I? What do I do? And more importantly, is what I do providing value to somebody? And I think, to me, that's kind of where this starts traversing down the path of, like,
is there a purpose? Is there a purpose piece to this as well?
I just like this. I want to drop this because this is a standard Chris Lockhart thing. He's going to get this reference right away. Remember when Don Draper looked at her and he said, "That's what the money is for"?
It's your job. I give you money, you give me ideas.
And you never say thank you.
That's what the money is for. You're young. You will get your recognition. And honestly, it is absolutely ridiculous to be 2 years into your career and counting your ideas. Everything to you is an opportunity. And you should be thanking me every morning when you wake up, along with Jesus, for giving you another day.
That's what the money's for. Yeah, she says, I want to be recognized. I want you to say thank you. And he's like, I did say thank you. And she says, but you haven't said thank you. He's like, that's what the money's for.
That's what the money is for.
We'll put that clip in, right? I'm sure we'll.
Yeah.
We know the people that worked on that. But anyway, the point is, like, I think there is this questioning of, like, I want to be thanked. I want to make sure that what I'm doing matters to somebody. And I think, as you go through this thread and it gets progressively darker, it's sort of like a lot of people are not connecting those dots, right?
But coming back to the purpose point, that's why I may eat my words in the future if you point at me and go, you've got to work for one of these companies. But I'm generally, not looking to go back into a firm that's not fairly purpose driven. Because I think that this is what creates the problem, is if you don't have a clear mission and purpose as a consulting firm beyond just making money or extracting money from clients, I think it can put people into the situation that this Reddit thread describes, because people feel like they have to say whatever they need to say, they have to do whatever they have to do in order to keep billing the client, rather than actually having I know I did this today, I helped with this problem. In some cases, let's face it, sometimes you're in a situation where you've got to increase the revenues or you've got to justify your existence, rather than actually delivering a real outcome you can go and be proud of. So, and this is why you sometimes get weird situations with particularly management consulting, where it's like, what are you guys doing again? And if you're the consultant in that situation, of course it's going to feel weird.
So are you saying, like, the values of the company and your own particular values? We talked about values before, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how much of this really?
Well, that's exactly the problem. I mean, that's, because I just wanted to add one thing in there with Oliver, which is, he said, somebody, he said, I need to work for a company that's purpose driven. All companies are purpose driven. The purposes simply may not align. And that's what happens, right? So their purpose might be, man, I'm just here to build the biggest stack of cash I can. What you and I and Chris may have learned over time is that if the company's other core values, if the place we're working for doesn't care about the same things we do over the long haul, it doesn't matter how big the stack of cash is. It just isn't going to fill that hole. And that's what we're trying to figure out. Is that what he's working on?
I think there's a large part of that at play. It's like, yeah, they're saying they love the money,
Yeah.
but yeah, they don't really care about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that for me speaks about purpose.
Right. I mean, we've got this thread up right here, right? I've been promoted to senior consultant. The years have been miserable, right? It's like, oh, wow, that starts getting really dark, right? And it's like filling that void. So, I mean, okay. So is the original sort of jokey meme, what do consultants actually do? Is that an indication of, like, if you are asking that question, it's not because you don't know the words to answer that. It's because you have some pit, some misaligned something somewhere. Like some of these
they don't like the answer. I think you just don't like it, right?
So say what? What'd you say?
I said you just don't like the answer, perhaps.
Oh, that could be.
But I was going to say the other thing he says in this thread is that he's putting in minimal effort. They've been on the same project for 18 months. I've sold my soul. Everyone's a robot. So it's kind of like, yeah, what value am I really giving other than helping the firm I work for rake in cash? So when you're in that point, I think, yeah, it's a tough spot to be in.
You know what? I'll get biographical here, right? It's like, yeah, if you go back 10, 15 years in my life and in my career, yeah, it was kind of about, like, let's see how far I can get ahead, how much money I can make, how important I can make myself feel about myself, right? Those sorts of things. There wasn't a whole lot of, like, I have a purpose in life and I want to live to that purpose. And that caused problems, right? And that on the home front and in the work front. But I think, that idea of, like, I want to live a purpose-driven life, right there. I mean, there are books written about it, right? Obviously, which is like, I need
what they're called.
I need goals, right? I need some objective that I'm working towards.
Ikigai, right? Is it Ikigai? Japanese phrase that says, I think it's Ikigai or something. I have to look up. Maybe Ikigai.
Is that the person's name?
No, it's a Japanese word for, like, purpose, what you want to do, what the world wants, and what you can make money doing. It's like that intersection of those three things.
Yeah. And I think I made a decision, like I said, a number of years ago, that was like, I didn't really care about that intersection. I was going to go down this path and go to a certain point and then probably do something else. And here we are, over a decade later, and it's like, I'm still doing that thing. Now I've made changes. We've talked about values and aligning your values with the company you work for and stuff like that. I've made those changes, so I'm in a place now where I feel a lot better. But I think that is a problem for a lot of people. I think they get stuck in the, I started doing it for the money, and now I can't give that up because that has superficially become my purpose, right? And I think that deep down they know that that's not really a purpose. It's maybe an objective, it's a goal, but it's not what gets you up in the morning, is it? Do you get up in the morning for the big paycheck?
I just have a similar story to you, and I think most people do, if I'm honest. Like, early stage career, it's all about getting cash because, let's face it, you've often got student debts.
Yeah.
You want to buy a property, or you want to get a rent somewhere. So it's pretty materialistic, I think, initially, isn't it? And it's kind of like, how do I climb the corporate ladder? And then I think there are some people that constantly, stay in that track, and they end up being partners because they are so driven to just keep on progressing and progressing and progressing. And I think you get other people in the consulting world who go, do you know what? There's more to life than just cash, and I'm going to look after my clients, will look after the people I work with, and therefore I'll trade a little bit of being promoted each progression cycle for, like, being a bit more happy with what I'm doing and having a bit of balance in my life. It's not all about work, because let's face it, there are many partners, we've all worked with them, right, who are just literally 110% work. And that's not, if that's what you choose to do, great. And hats off to people that are that sort of committed to their workplace. But
do you think that's real? We've known those people that are like, oh, all I want to do is deliver value for the customer and all this sort of stuff. And that's all they talk about, is all constantly in what they can altruistically give and all this sort of stuff. And, half the time I look at them, I'm just like, you're so full of shit. You know, you're just better at masking what your true motives are than other people might.
It's an interesting perspective.
I mean, that's sort of my Hobbesian take on everything. But like, you know, I don't know that I'm bought into this. Like that, there are people that committed to some of this stuff that that becomes self-fulfilling. That becomes fulfilling for them. I don't know. I could be wrong. There may be consultants out there that are like, no, I love working 100 hours.
But I think it's because it builds the individual.
It's the outcomes.
Yeah, and also, you know, you become this, you know, you put on a pedestal, aren't you? Oh, look at him, he's making so much money for the. It becomes. I think it becomes.
It's an ego thing.
Yeah, I think I totally think it is.
What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, no, I think there is a way for that to be. I mean, and there is someone who's probably got this adaptation thing worked out just right. And it is like, yeah, I like helping people. I think it's really good. I am delighted that I'm able to do it for such high quality people that they can stroke me a big check to do it, right? That's fantastic. But I think to your point, this other kind of person that we can find ourselves is we can become so addicted to the approbation, right? To just people loving us and what we're doing, that we're going, oh, I think that's what I really want to have happen. And I am willing to give up all sorts of things in order to get other people to tell me that they love the way I think or the way I do.
That's just making yourself feel better, though, isn't it? That's just.
Oh, it's empty calories. If that, to your point, it's empty calories.
Well, it's just another filler, right? It's like if it's not the paycheck, if it's not, you know, a liter of alcohol every night or whatever some of these folks are saying, right? If it's not those things filling the void, it's this like obsessive need to be like validated all the time and put on the pedestal. In other words, maybe this is
it's an addiction.
Maybe it is an addiction, right? I love feeling good
It's
about
a
what other
dopamine
people say about me.
addiction.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really a dopamine cycle thing, isn't it? Like solving problems.
Dopamine.
Yeah.
That's chemical.
Reward system for
Yeah,
like solving
yeah.
problems and like getting out of tight spots. Like, you know, there are some people that just, I mean, I for a long time was one of them. I still am. I quite like a challenging up against the wall situation where, you know, you've got to pull something out of a hat. I mean, I can't do it long term, but like a couple of weeks of intense, like, we've just got to get this thing sorted. Like the buzz you feel when you actually pull that off is fantastic. But
that's why people skydive. Bungee cord to jump off of bridges.
And I've looked up cheekily on the side here, I've looked up Ikigai, and it is the Japanese concept of a reason for being. And it is what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And the intersection of all those things is Ikigai.
Okay, we'll flash that out.
So here's the thing. I love that because iki meaning to live and gai meaning reason. In Japanese, gai means reason. In Chinese, it means chicken. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's some relation, as in Mugu Gai Pan, right? So I'm just, what is this? How did those come together?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
What does it all mean? I'm so confused.
I love that. I love that. If only Wendy was here, she could tell us what guy means in Norwegian.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I feel like there is this thing, right, behind, like, I'll call it the void, right? The black dog, whatever you want to call it, right? It's there.
The pit of despair.
The pit of despair. The trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
Right. The, you know, whatever.
I'll just keep them coming. Keep them coming. Just keep going.
The pit of Sarlacc, right?
Like the borehole of doom.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
What was it in The Princess Bride? The forest of whatever, you know, with the big rats. Anyway, the rodents of uncommon size.
Uncertainty.
Yeah, whatever it is. So I'll look that up later. So, it's real. It's something. I just forget what it is. So all right. So I think this is a thing. I guess the question is like, so what? Right? It's like, just fucking deal with it, right? And move on. But I think it causes people real problems, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you see
Yeah,
this?
that was really kind of the big piece of this, right? So we started with the idea of, hey, I just can't explain what I do to people.
Right.
And once you know that you can get the words for that right, you can actually do this, and you can do it short or you can do it long, whatever it is they're looking for. But the deeper piece of this, the real existential angst, is maybe I don't know what I do and I don't believe in what I do, and I got to figure out how to, you know, and that's kind of imposter syndrome and a whole bunch of other stuff sort of wrapped together, right?
I don't think this is unique to consulting. I think there are
It
people
is not, right?
in
Yeah,
high paid roles in lots of industries that feel the same, right? Like I'm sure financial services, legal, etc., etc. And when someone is earning like significant amount of money and they start to doubt their self worth, am I really worth this? This paycheck I'm getting, right? So it's I
have you ever felt that?
I do feel that at times, quite frankly. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, we have an answer to this. I mean, it's just 2 words, right? The cure to this sort of imposter syndrome is unbridled narcissism. If you could just believe in yourself more than anybody else, if you could say, I've got no flaws, you got this solved.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Are you being serious?
You got new problems. You got a whole new stuff.
Say.
Chris says, I'm willing to try it.
I'm told that I am already. So it's sort of like,
is there a pill? Is there a pill I can take?
Yeah.
Training?
Empathy training? I took empathy.
A class I can take? No, I mean, obviously kidding there. But the thing is, I think part of that really is, unless you are narcissistic, you probably occasionally have this feeling like maybe I'm not the right cat for this, right?
Maybe that's
feelings of self-doubt.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. Your prescription for this is not alcohol or chasing the money dream. It's become a narcissist, an unapologetic narcissist. Is that what we're telling people?
But I think we've already touched on that, haven't we? There are certain people, there's certainly partners I've sort of seen and worked with who fall into that trap. It's all about them. It's self-centered, and therefore they never stop to think, is this right? It's just,
that's a good point.
Yeah. And that's why I think you get behaviors.
That's right. And I think we don't want to be that cat. And I think what I'm trying to say to you is that it is kind of good to occasionally say, maybe I'm wrong, and let me figure this out. And what are the words for what I want to do? And am I doing what I ought to be doing? And when am I doing what I need to be doing? Am I fulfilling my role among my various many roles that I might have in life? But am I fulfilling the role? It's a good thing to question. And if you aren't ever questioning it, it might be because you're a narcissist.
Well, narcissists are never wrong, right? Or if something is wrong, it's someone else's fault.
Yeah.
I mean, right. There are senior partners I've met that are exactly like that.
And I don't want to say every partner, because that's not true.
Just the senior.
That's right. Wow.
It's a good job this podcast is more for like the managers and the senior consultants, and not for it's a good job this isn't
right. Update, I'm looking for a job.
Nice.
No, so all right. So okay. So I got it, right? It's let me are we saying that if you're struggling with some of this existential angst, that some deep questioning is warranted? Is this like ask good questions about who I am and what I do? I mean, are we saying like you can answer those questions and stay in your job, or are we telling people like, oh, when you answer those questions, you're going to want to sell candles in Sedona, or like I don't know, but you're going to have a
take
career.
Up the ukulele.
Become
a professional ukulele player. No, I don't think it's as deep. I don't think it is as, I mean, it could be, but I don't think it's necessarily as deep as that. I think it's easy for lots of us to forget the good that we do and the impact that we're having on other people, the impact we might be having on our firm, and to express that gratitude. And I think one of the ways, the tools that we can use is that we do figure out ways to outline, well, what worked well today? What did I enjoy about what I did? I mean, there's always opportunities for improvement, but what worked well in what I'm doing? And, write that down. Stick that in your journal or however it is you do it. I mean, for me, I write this kind of stuff down every day because I'm trying to remember what worked and what didn't work and maybe get better at what I'm doing as a human, right? But I think saying what worked well today is useful.
So let me ask you,
back.
Does that work for you?
Yeah. Super. I mean, it really changes my point of view. And the reason I can tell you that with some clarity is I can go back to my journals from a decade ago and I can see where I was mentally and that I knew that I needed to make a change. And this is how I saw the change getting made, right? So I can reach back behind me and pull out a book and show you, here is where a spot where I was really struggling. And I decided this is how I was going to make the turn.
Can you pull out the journal from that one Thursday in 2008 when you invited people to come have a cigar and I showed up and it was you and me and I think 2 other cats? I want to know what's
February.
written in
It's
that
like a
journal.
February. It's February of 2008. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
Who the hell is this guy?
that is somewhere. You know, that was.
He
I
couldn't
think
explain what he
noticed that
did.
on
I asked him
Twitter.
what he did. He couldn't explain it.
Why I'm here now. Yeah.
You see this, right? I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank because I'm tired.
that's a
Sorry.
nap. Yeah.
I do need to have a power nap.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I totally do, and I think people get caught in this classic dilemma that we started with at the beginning, like you know, unfortunately. Yeah, and I remember this conversation. Sorry, I'm wandering a bit here, but I remember this conversation I had with my dad before he sadly passed away. And I said to him, because he was a teacher for his whole career, and I felt like, you know, he lived a life of service essentially. Kind of his whole purpose was like to kind of bring on the next generation. He was a real passionate teacher. You know, really cared about what he did. And I remember this conversation with him, like, oh, Dad, I just don't feel like what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm making money, but I don't feel like what I'm doing is really, you know, giving back. And I remember him just sort of saying, look, it doesn't always have to be about everyone doing, you know, the society exists and money is the sort of way that people are rewarded for doing a bunch of things. Of course, not always what you do in life, you know, equates with the value, the demand, and obviously is a bit off the chart at times for certain roles. But it was a really interesting conversation where I kind of like felt, oh, yeah, Dad, compared to you, I don't feel like I'm really, you know, doing something that's important. So I think it's easy to get yourself beaten up, you beat yourself up about this, and particularly if you're providing for your family, you know, there's other things at play here. Like it's not always about doing, you know, the Mother Teresa thing. Unfortunately, it sometimes is about putting food on the table.
So it's not all altruism. I have a similar father story. That's a little bit different, but similar, right? My father worked in the automotive industry his whole life, right? So he's producing things, right? Steel, right? There's like, you know, massive dies, stamping things and tires and all that sort of stuff. And I remember in the late 90s, so I was in Boston at the time, you know, working in some startups and thinking like, oh, you know, this is the new generation of industry, right? Everything that's gone before is irrelevant and doesn't matter. And, you know, this is the knowledge economy and all this sort of stuff. And I remember having a phone conversation with him and it was sort of, he was like, so like, what do you do? It was the, what do you do question. And so I was like, well, you know, there's these websites and they, you know, and then, you know, we dynamically create and, you know, there's content in a database and depending on, you know, how you type the URL, it pull different content. Content management is really what dynamic content management. But, and he was like, yeah, but what is it? Right. And he kept going with that. And what I realized is like, you know, he's used to tangible products that come off an assembly line that are predictable, right? That are, well, it's an assembly line. It's industrialization. It's repetitive activity, right? And so much of this is not, right? There's so much ambiguity. And I just remember that's always stuck with me, like, especially when it came into like technical consulting, a little bit different because at the end of the day, there's a tool that you've installed or whatever. But when you get into management consulting and you're really dealing with like ideas and communication, it's really abstract. But it always stuck with me like, you know, okay, any SOW that I write or anything like that, there has to be like a tangible thing. What value am I getting out of the thing? And that stuck with me from what he told me, God, like 30 years ago, right? I mean, because it is a question. It's like, what am I getting for this?
I do worry that we are in an era where people aren't getting an awful lot of fulfillment because I don't know if you've read *Sapiens*, but like it's really interesting. Like
I know Phil has. You've read *Sapiens*.
It's really interesting how like we've evolved, you know, over quite a relatively long period, and it's a short period of time that we've been operating in the knowledge economy and with technology and things like that. And therefore, I fear it's not really ticking all of our boxes, right? And then there's a big reason why I spent a good couple of weeks of time off building a log cabin in my garden, like, because this virtual shit sometimes,
good, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah,
this virtual shit just doesn't do it for me. I need to actually physically do something. And it's funny, on the flight I was watching an episode of South Park where it was like people don't know how to do shit anymore. It's a great episode if you've not seen it. It's like it's all of these knowledge workers kind of like with placards going, I can't get myself a handyman because no one's, you know, everyone's forgotten how to do real stuff. So I do wonder if there is an element of this that like what we're doing is a little bit too abstract. You can't go and say, there's the widget I built.
Right.
It's a little bit too abstract and ephemeral. Sorry, I've taken it down.
We went from *Sapiens* to *South Park*.
*Sapiens* to *South Park*.
We
That's
went
a
from
book.
Sapiens to South Park in really just about one sentence.
All right. That's just where my
Well,
jet
that's
lagged
great.
head is.
I love it.
That was fantastic. Yeah. Right. You
So-
are L'uomo universal.
I think people struggle with this, and you don't take my word for it. Go to Reddit's, our consulting subreddit, and read the stuff in there about, there's stuff in there. It's like, I've been working at an MBB company, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, company, and I've been here like 10 years, and I hate it, and I still do it. There's all that kind of stuff. There's all of this. I guess it is just angst, right? Of like, what am I doing, and does it matter?
And so maybe one of the key takeaways here is if you're feeling like that, you're not alone. There's lots of people.
Lots of people.
I
don't think they're just all consultants. To your point
No,
earlier,
right? I think it's a knowledge economy thing. I really do. I don't think you get the same Reddit thread from construction workers and people that are doing real stuff. I really don't.
They do something and there's a result that's visible.
It's much easier to explain and say, this is what I did.
I can look at a building that's been built and say, oh, I understand what you did here, right? You built the building. If you are integrating, SAP and Workday, it's like at the end of that, it's sort of like, well, what did we do?
That's not something you can point at. I guess what's even less tangible is, I created the marketing strategy or
kind
of corporate strategy,
an
or
operating
M&A.
model.
Yeah, an operating model, or I helped with M&A, or IPO, getting a company ready for IPO. That sort of stuff is really kind of very. It's so many layers above the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's kind of very abstract and up here.
Well, I think that's why, like a lot of times, a lot of this ties back to dollars, right? It's like in a lot of statements of work, or if you're working on something, the executives that are paying for this will ultimately be like, well, what does this save me, or in terms of dollars, or how much money can I make off of this thing in terms of dollars? So it tends to reduce everything to like an operational efficiency or a revenue play at the bottom of it. And I think if you do that enough, it's sort of like, shit, is this what I want to be on my deathbed? And it's like, what did you do? I saved 2% of, the overhead cost in one calendar year. And
I created very shiny PowerPoints.
Right. It's like, oh my gosh, that's it. Right. Versus I built this office building, right? Like that's a completely different thing.
Yeah. I think, I talked about this sort of journaling exercise. I think there's some real utility in that bit, because, you just kind of lost track of where you were, is what I think happens for some people, right? I mean, like you said, that Reddit thread can be dark, but let's just, let's examine our own lives here and look at this first. Without some introspection, without some reflection upon, was I a good human being today? And what does it mean for me to be a good human being tomorrow? We can, in fact, step by step, end up in a place we never expected to be, because we never looked at where we were, right?
And so feel stuck there, right?
Well, I mean, we walk into a place by place, and we end up in somebody else's quicksand. It's a quagmire of something, and you realize, holy crap, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you did it step by step, but you weren't paying attention.
I've had those long nights.
And I think consulting is particularly interesting for this, because you often don't realize until you're reasonably senior that you're in charge of taking your own destiny, and you have to be quite strong at pushing back. Otherwise, yes, you are chucked into all kinds of weird and wonderful project scenarios and engagement scenarios where, yes, to Phil's point, you're fixing something and it may not be anything you really want to be doing with, but you've been put on that engagement. And I think it's one of the biggest dilemmas of running a consulting firm, quite frankly, when I work with the teams that do staffing, is how do we marry like people's interests and what they're passionate about with what clients want us to do? It's like, that's one of the biggest challenges, I think, in running a consulting firm.
I'm going to be sort of cynical. I think there are plenty of companies that say we don't care, because we have so many people coming in and leaving. The turnover is 20,000 a year or whatever. I'll just find another body.
So I go back to my thing. I said I would never work for a company like that anymore. But I'm privileged; I can do that.
But this is where we've both worked for companies like that. Phil, you've worked for companies like that, where it's like you're just the grinder.
Well, you are a cog, and they need cogs.
So you're what?
Right? Sorry, sprocket. You are a sprocket, and they need sprockets. Oliver said this really clearly. I think we went really fast past it. you have to be in charge of this for yourself. Your firm is not going to do that. To Chris's point, there's not even, except for the most enlightened of them, it's not even in their self-interest. They don't realize it's in their self-interest for that to be part of the program, right? So you have to be in charge of that. And by the way, I was sitting there contemplating, I wanted to put the question to you guys, could this be a downtime exercise, right? Because, there's ebb and flow and the consulting thing, but could it be a downtime exercise? Would it be enough is my second question, or do you really need to be doing it every day? I really like the idea of, and every day reflecting upon what did you do? What did you do well? What did you need to do better next time? That kind of thing. What were the opportunities? But I think that kind of reflection exercise is super useful. And I think you ought to be doing something, and even if it's really small, every day. But the world is not going to do this for you. And it currently, our culture, not just consulting, but all of our culture is built around just taking everything out of you. It will hustle you to death. In fact, here's the crazy thing. It's not doing it from the outside. It's put inside you the motivations for you to burn yourself out.
Right. It's convinced you you have to do it.
It's convinced you have to do it. Chris, you could do more, damn it. You could be up more. Sleep is for the weak.
Yeah, follow your passion. Aren't you passionate about what you do?
That's exactly right. That's exactly what we're done. It's called positive control as opposed to negative control, right? There's not a cop, there's not a guard, there's not a boss looking at you saying, you absolutely have to do more. It's you saying, I have to do more. They've convinced you to put this message in yourself for yourself.
Self-discipline, isn't it? And going back to your point, Phil, about confidence. I know you were taking it to the extreme of narcissism, but it is about having enough confidence in yourself that you think you're worthy enough to spend that time journaling or to think and reflect. Because I think when I get pressurized, that's the first thing that goes out the window. It's like, just get the task done, or just do the day mission, the main mission.
Yeah, and if I look back, right, it's picking up on this thread of being in charge of where you are and what you're doing. I mean, I would go back in time, and like I said earlier, I made the conscious decision. I'm going to hustle as hard as I can to make as much money as I can and get as far ahead as I can. And that works for a period of time. I think what I neglected to do, this goes to the journaling or the daily check-in, is at what point, I look back and I'm sort of like, it's fuzzy. At what point did I stop asking the question, have I made it where I want to be? Right. In other words, you just get sucked into this vortex where it's like,
it's worse than that. You systematically move the goalposts.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. That's right. I need more, right? I need more.
But then there is also
that's hedonic adaptation. There's a word for that, right? We know what this is. Hedonic adaptation. It gets to be so nice, and we think
that's a resort
we could make it better.
Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, right? Yes, yeah.
We're gonna broadcast from there next.
Yeah.
Phil will be on site for that one. Yeah.
It's never as nice as we want it to be. So that's the hedonic adaptation.
Oh, you had an actual point. What was it? Hedonic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your point, you were saying, hey, I never asked myself if I had enough. And I am saying it's worse than that. You actually moved the goalposts somewhere along the way. We got this. Well, then now I need a new X, or I got to do this. And, and those are the things that we keep adding into our lives. I need a bigger pool. I need a pool. I need a bigger pool. I need whatever it might be.
It's the I'll be happy when dilemma, isn't it? I'll be happy when I have X, and that X is constantly shifting.
But is that poor goal setting? Is that what that is? Or
it's called hedonic adaptation. I think it's just it is built into our system that we get to a point we go, I think I could be more comfortable. I think I could eat more ice cream. I think this could be better.
That's how capitalism works, is like people want more, don't they? So they're driven to do more. And yeah, that's one of the darker sides of the system.
Yeah, but some people seem to get to a point they're like, okay, I've done everything I want to do and I'm done. Whereas like the people we're reading about, and my experiences and maybe yours, it's like you're just sucked into it's like you have to run faster and faster.
Maybe it's a career stage thing though.
Maybe.
Be interesting to look at.
I mean, you have a word for this. You have a word for those people who decide it's not for them. And I've heard you talk about up or out, right?
Yeah,
up or out.
You're perpetuating.
I know. It's my fault.
It's an out.
They
get off the treadmill, and that's exactly Yeah, you just get
You know
off the
why? Because
treadmill.
they're losers. No, it's not bad at all. No, but they, in that particular case, right? Consciously or subconsciously, people have made a decision, and it seems like a negative result. But you can talk to lots of people that have fallen on the outside of the upper out model. And a lot of them are happier than they were when they were pursuing the up.
But they didn't know that while they were still on the ride.
Because the system was keeping them kind of hooked where they were, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. Interesting chat.
Yeah.
Good chat.
Sorry, you're gonna have to edit out some of my brain farts.
No, that's fine. So should we?
We're all there.
I got glasses. They're tulip glasses too. See?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, you want to have a little bit before your nap? So Oliver brought me a gift, and Phil, as you know, I haven't really been drinking. So,
oh yes, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have brought you a drink.
oh no, I'm glad you did. Yeah, let me. All right, entertain yourself.
Are you pouring something? Should I go pour something so I can?
Yeah, go grab yourself something, Phil.
I'll be right back.
The head is quite nice though.
Yeah, but
Sorry, I just realised.
all right, there you go. It's become an X-rated podcast.
Yeah, this for Patreon only.
Yeah. Well, I
Oh,
can't.
what
I
have you got there? That looks like Calvados or something, Phil.
can't lift this up.
It's Aberlour.
Oh, nice. 12. Nice. Very good.
Just a regular Friday for Phil.
It's got a nice.
It's the house scotch.
It's got a nice floral note. It's like a beer that's got a nice nose to it. Normally beers don't, smell that good, but this really does. You had a sniff?
I haven't had a sniff because mine's mostly.
Have a sniff of that.
Oh, it smells good. I poured it. It's too. Yeah.
That'll be right now.
Yeah, it's
You can
fine.
get-
So,
What is it? Oh, it's a Belgian triple.
It is
Nice.
8.4%.
Nice.
yeah,
It's a sipping beer.
yeah. It's afternoon.
Yeah.
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 Well, I took the day off, so
Chris says that's a session beer for him.
yes,
You're,
One
un-
session.
you're under the table if that's a session.
I know. Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to America.
Great to be back.
Cheers.